He wrote the song that made a mobster rich, and legally, he never earned a dollar from it. She named the group that built an empire and died on welfare in a housing project. 10 legendary soul singers. Their voices still sell records today. They never saw the money. Number 10. Little Willie John. Before Peggy Lee ever touched a microphone,
left us much too soon.
Fever belonged to a 5'4" teenager from Detroit named Little Willie John. He recorded the original in 1956.
In order to give Little Willie John and the family the proper respect,
and the song became a standard, covered by everyone from the Beatles to Madonna,
I am so proud to
generating decades of royalties for the writers and labels that owned the publishing. John himself never saw that kind of fortune.
He's been an inspiration to me since I was a kid.
His contract with King Records locked him into low royalty rates, while his songs climbed the charts again and again through other artists' voices. By the mid-1960s, his career was fading, and, according to those close to him, so was his money. In 1966, after a violent altercation at a party in Seattle,
in addition to what she said, I would like to thank you on behalf of
John was convicted of manslaughter and sent to Washington State Penitentiary while still in his 20s. Behind bars,
thank you so much. This is really
largely forgotten by an industry that had already moved on to bigger names, Little Willie John's health quietly collapsed. On May 26, 1968, he died inside that prison. Officially of a heart attack, though rumors of neglect and violence have followed the case for decades, with his own family disputing the official story. He
had strong genes, and he passed those down.
was 30 years old. His label barely acknowledged his death. His records kept selling under other people's names. The singer who created Fever
Because a lot of his peers also
was buried in relative obscurity, while the song made everyone rich except him. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 28 years later, honored posthumously for a hit he never got to profit from himself.
not because I feel he was worthy.
Number 9. Ivory Wright. Ivory Wright had one of the most powerful voices in Southern soul.
So every night before me and my
A voice so raw that Otis Redding and the Rolling Stones both covered his songs. His 1964 single, That's How Strong My Love Is, became a soul standard, recorded in versions that outsold his own original by far.
that you had
But behind the scenes, Wright was signed and reassigned between competing labels, tangled in overlapping contracts he barely understood, and
we thank God for sending us to
he never received the mainstream financial success that his influence on the genre clearly deserved.
and raise our heads toward heaven.
Heroin addiction took hold of his life in the 1970s, and in the middle of that decade, Wright served time in prison on narcotics charges.
I remember reading where it had been said about them of olden days.
Another chunk of his career, lost to circumstances, the industry did little to help him escape. When he was released, he
We could have
signed with High Records and kept recording, kept touring, kept
one thing I like about it, it makes me
singing with everything he had left in him. But the big hits never returned, and the addiction never fully let go of him. On November 16, 1980, while performing at a supper club in Grand Bay, Alabama, Wright suffered a heart attack
every morning, all in your eyes.
and died before reaching the hospital. He was only 41 years old.
We got so much love.
For nearly 3 decades afterward, his grave sat unmarked in a Memphis cemetery, forgotten,
That this is not
until fans finally raised the money for a headstone in 2008. Meanwhile, the artists who covered his songs sold millions of copies,
Falling by the wayside.
and producers built entire hip-hop tracks from samples of his voice, without O.V. Wright himself ever collecting a single dime of it.
Here's something most people don't realize. Only about 10% of you watching will hit subscribe. The other 90% just watch and move on. You made it this far, so you're clearly not most people. Hit subscribe. Back to the countdown.
Number 8. James Carr. Some soul singers had the stage presence. James Carr had the voice, a deep, aching baritone that turned the dark end of the street into one of the most devastating soul recordings anyone has ever heard. Critics dubbed him the world's greatest soul singer. But Carr suffered from severe, largely undiagnosed bipolar disorder. In an industry that had little patience or resources for an artist who could freeze mid-performance or vanish from a recording session entirely without warning. His label, Goldwax Records, collapsed into bankruptcy in the late 1960s, taking whatever momentum Carr had built along with it. Through the 1970s and much of the 1980s, he cycled in and out of psychiatric hospitalizations, largely forgotten by the very industry that had once called him a legend among legends. A brief revival came in the early 1990s, after music historian Peter Guralnick's landmark book, reminded the world that James Carr still existed, and he returned to record 2 more albums and tour small clubs across America and Europe. But there was no lost fortune left to reclaim, and no back pay for songs still being covered by singers far more famous and far wealthier than he ever became. James Carr spent his final years living quietly with his sister, in and out of hospitals, before dying of lung cancer in a Memphis nursing home on January 7th, 2001. He was just 58 years old. The song that made him immortal in the history of soul music never once made him rich. Number 7. Ivory Joe Hunter. He was called the happiest man alive, and he may have written more songs than almost any other R&B artist of his generation, with some estimates running past 7,000 compositions across 4 decades. Ivory Joe Hunter's own Since I Met You Baby became a massive hit in 1956, and his songs were later recorded by stars like Pat Boone and Elvis Presley, generating fortunes for other people's careers built on melodies he had written first.
Television debut of Ivory Joe Hunter.
Hunter kept working for decades, chasing new audiences in country music, performing proudly at the Grand Ole Opry, always writing, always hoping the next song would finally be the one that set him up for life. It never quite happened for him. In December of 1973, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and the medical bills started arriving almost immediately after. Even with decades of hit songwriting credits behind his name, Hunter simply did not have the resources saved up to cover his own treatment. Friends and fellow musicians, including Isaac Hayes, organized a benefit concert to help pay his mounting bills as his health rapidly collapsed around him. Weeks later, on November 8, 1974, Ivory Joe Hunter died in a Memphis hospital. He was 60 years old, one of the most prolific songwriters in American music history, and he died with his finances completely wiped out by the very illness that ended his life. The songs he wrote are still being played on the radio today. He never lived to see a fraction of what they were truly worth. Number 6. Arthur Alexander. Arthur Alexander wrote and recorded Anna and You Better Move On, songs so good that both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones covered them on their very first studio albums. Bob Dylan later recorded his material too. No other songwriter in music history can claim cover versions from all three of those acts combined. And yet Alexander never made anywhere near the money that should have come with that kind of towering influence. By the mid-1970s, broke and largely forgotten by the industry, he walked away from music entirely and became a city bus driver in Cleveland, Ohio. Spending more than a decade behind the wheel instead of behind a microphone. For years, almost nobody riding his bus knew that the quiet driver had written songs the Beatles themselves once idolized as teenagers. In 1990, the Alabama Music Hall of Fame finally inducted him, a small honor that helped convince him to perform again. In 1993, after renewed interest in his old catalog, Alexander finally returned to recording, releasing his first new album in over 20 years, and performing again to enthusiastic, sold-out crowds. For a moment, it genuinely looked like the long-overdue payday might finally be arriving. Then, just 3 days after a triumphant performance in Nashville, and only weeks after signing a brand new recording and publishing deal, Arthur Alexander suffered a sudden, fatal heart attack. He was 53 years old. He died right as the industry was finally, belatedly, circling back to pay him something close to what it had always owed him. Number 5. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was Mr. Excitement, one of the most electrifying live performers in the history of American music. A direct influence on Elvis Presley, James Brown, and later Michael Jackson himself. He sold out arenas across the entire country, while reportedly earning as much as $260,000 a year at his commercial peak in the early 1960s. But his manager and label mismanaged his finances so badly that the IRS actually seized his own home for unpaid taxes while he was one of the biggest stars alive in America. In 1975, mid-performance, singing his signature hit Lonely Teardrops, Wilson collapsed from a heart attack that left him with severe permanent brain damage. He spent the next 8 years in nursing homes, unable to speak, unable to walk, aware of his surroundings, but trapped inside his own failing body. Behind the scenes, a court case later revealed that his label had defrauded him out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid royalties. But Wilson was far too incapacitated to ever personally collect a cent of it. Elvis Presley reportedly paid a large portion of his mounting medical bills out of his own pocket. On January 21, 1984, Jackie Wilson died of pneumonia in a New Jersey nursing home. He was buried in an unmarked grave, reportedly around $300,000 in debt, until fans raised money years later for a proper headstone in a mausoleum. The man who electrified an entire generation died broke, in a room he could never leave on his own.
He'll give you just one answer. She's the girl they recently invited
Number 4. Mary Wells. Mary Wells was Motown's very first star. The label's original hitmaker before the Supreme or the Temptations ever charted a single record. Her 1964 single, My Guy, became an international #1 hit and helped make the Motown name a household word across America. She left the label at the height of her fame, chasing a bigger deal elsewhere. But her career never fully recovered its momentum, even after becoming the first Motown artist to tour the UK alongside the Beatles, and by the 1980s, she was touring oldies revues just to make ends meet. In 1990, doctors diagnosed her with cancer of the larynx, the very instrument that had built her entire career from nothing. Like many musicians of her era, Wells had no health insurance whatsoever.
Hey, ask any one of the Beatles who his favorite girl singer is.
And the cost of treatment devastated her finances so completely that she was reportedly evicted from her own apartment. Fellow artists including Diana Ross, Rod Stewart, and Bruce Springsteen stepped in to help cover her medical bills. Because the industry that had profited from her voice for decades had left her with almost nothing to fall back on. In 1991, Wells sued Motown for unpaid royalties she believed she was rightfully owed from her biggest hits, eventually settling for a fraction of what her music had actually earned the company. On July 26, 1992, Mary Wells died in Los Angeles, California. She was 49 years old. Motown's first great voice, financially wiped out by the very career and the very label that it helped make famous around the world. Number 3. Esther Phillips. As a teenager billed simply as Little Esther, she was discovered by bandleader Johnny Otis at a Los Angeles talent contest and scored a #1 R&B hit before she was even old enough to legally drive a car. Over 4 decades, Esther Phillips moved fluidly through blues, country, jazz, and soul, earning 4 Grammy nominations and international acclaim for hits like Release Me and her later disco reimagining of What a Difference a Day Makes. But heroin addiction shadowed nearly her entire career, reportedly introduced to her in her teenage years by people already inside the music industry itself. The addiction drained her earnings again and again, forcing long stretches where she was so short on money that she performed in the smallest, seediest clubs across the South just to survive day to day. She would recover, rebuild her career, score another hit, and then lose it all over again to the same old pattern, a cycle that repeated itself for the better part of 3 decades. By the early 1980s, her health was failing badly under the accumulated weight of decades of substance abuse and years of hard touring. On August 7, 1984, Esther Phillips died from liver and kidney failure at a hospital in Los Angeles. She was 48 years old. There was so little money left behind that she was initially buried in an unmarked pauper's grave in Compton. It took her longtime mentor, Johnny Otis, organizing a fundraiser the following year just to finally give her a proper resting place. Number 2. Frankie Lymon. At just 13 years old, Frankie Lymon's voice on Why Do Fools Fall in Love made him the first great teenage star of the rock and roll era. The record sold in the millions almost overnight. Almost immediately, the industry began quietly stripping him of what he had rightfully earned. His producer secretly wrote himself in as a co-songwriter on the record. A move that meant Lymon would never legally collect a cent in songwriting royalties for the biggest hit of his life. Even as the song kept getting covered again and again for decades afterward. As his voice changed and the hits dried up, Lymon spiraled into heroin addiction as a teenager, cycling in and out of rehab for most of his adult life. He briefly got clean, joined the army, and even booked a comeback recording session he was reportedly genuinely excited about. He never made it to that session. On February 27, 1968, the night before it was scheduled, Frankie Lymon was found dead of a heroin overdose on his grandmother's bathroom floor, inside the very same Harlem apartment building where he had grown up. He was 25 years old, and by most accounts, broke. It would take a bitter, decades-long legal battle between three women, all claiming to be his rightful widow, before anyone saw a fraction of the royalties his teenage voice had earned for other men, a fight that only intensified after Diana Ross took the song back to the top of the charts years later. Number 1. Florence Ballard. She named the group. Florence Ballard was the founding member of the Supremes, the woman who chose that name and helped recruit both Mary Wilson and Diana Ross into what would become the most successful female vocal group in American music history. Growing up as one of 15 children in Detroit's Brewster Douglas housing projects, Ballard had one of the group's most powerful voices, often compared to Etta James or Aretha Franklin. But when Berry Gordy chose Diana Ross as the group's lead singer, Ballard was pushed into the background of an act she had helped build. The Supremes sold over 100 million records and helped build Motown into an empire worth tens of millions. Diana Ross alone went on to earn an estimated $250 million over her career. Florence Ballard was pushed out of the group in 1967. She sued Motown for royalties she believed she was owed, and lost in court. Soon after, her marriage collapsed. Her home was foreclosed on, and she sank into alcoholism and depression. In 1974, Mary Wilson invited her old friend to join the Supremes briefly on stage, but Ballard, disillusioned with singing, only played tambourine. That same year, newspapers reported that the woman who had named the Supremes had quietly applied for welfare. She was living in a Detroit housing project, raising 3 daughters alone, with less than $1,000 to her name and $16,000 in debt. An insurance settlement in 1975 let her buy a modest home, and she reconciled with her husband and began talking about a comeback. It never happened. On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard died suddenly of a heart attack. She was 32 years old, the woman who built Motown's greatest act. Dead in poverty, while the empire she helped create kept getting richer without her. In 1988, she was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside Diana Ross and Mary Wilson. The recognition arriving 12 years too late for a woman who who never got to hear it. Her story would later inspire the character of Effie White in the musical Dreamgirls, and when Jennifer Hudson won her Academy Award for the role, she dedicated it to Florence Ballard, the real woman who never got the chance the world gave her fictional counterpart.